Can you all hear me? Perfect. I hope everyone is doing well. I went through your homework, so good job. Of course, there were minor mistakes from, but that's totally fine. I mean, you will still be getting above average score because you're covering many dimensions, linking theories with practice. Some of you are exceeding the word limit, but that's fine for now. It's good to exceed the word limit. Showcases that you know quite a lot of things. So good job on the homework. Now, we'll start today's episode with a very interesting question. Question is, what does it truly mean to be loyal to India? Who will tell me? Any supporters of Congress? No supporter of Congress? Any supporter of BJP? So good job. At least you're doing well. But if I were to ask this question to non-misfiters, they would perhaps raise their hands. I see so many people blindly supporting the Indian National Congress. They think that Congress is one party that is the savior of your constitutional rights. And what happened to those rights when Indira Gandhi ji imposed national emergency? Today, Congress will talk a lot about civil liberties. But why were those liberties suspended during their rule? Even today in Telangana. Back in the days, Supreme Court, under the influence of Ms. Gandhi, gave a very interesting ruling that your right to life is suspended during national emergency. ADM Jabalpur case. Today, we all see those snippets, those visuals that Congress leader walking everywhere with a book of Constitution. Request him to read through the First Amendment. What was the need to introduce ninth schedule? What is it? Ninth schedule. Giving you the homework to go through those polity episodes because we'll be beginning with a new season in some time.
Sir, under the ninth schedule, whatever laws would be placed, it would save them from judicial review, but then judiciary revoked this.
But how many years later did that happen? Revocation. Ninth schedule gave legislature unchecked legislative powers in a way. Checks and balances, that's the hallmark of any sane democracy. What was Nehruji trying to achieve via First Amendment Act? With that act, he's clearly undermining the separation of power, foundational principle of our democracy. When this was revoked by, I think, 2007, there were over 280 laws in ninth schedule. It was a constitutional black hole. Thanks to First Amendment, ninth schedule became a political tool to, to abuse the power of legislature, abuse citizens of India. Why? Because it was a tool to weaken your fundamental rights. It was a tool via which judiciary was sidelined. To all those who are gleaming with pride, see what Congress did. Don't worry, we'll talk about BJP also. Indian National Congress talks about secularism. But then there's a question, what happened when Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister? In 1984, more than 3,000 Sikhs were massacred. Massacred, that's the term I should use. After Indira Gandhi's assassination, over 3,000 Sikhs, that's the official underestimated number. They were massacred. Their homes were destroyed. The businesses were burnt to ground. Sitting MPs, Jagdish Tytler, Sajjan Kumar, HKL Bhagat, they were accused of organizing mobs. Not just that, they were even distributing weapons. Voters list, it was reportedly given out. Why? What's the reason? So that they can identify the Sikh homes. They could identify the businesses. But why Rajiv Gandhi to be blamed? He was not the one doing it, right? So why should you blame Rajiv Gandhi ji here? Mob was doing the things. How can a prime minister control a mob? Thoughts anyone? Am I audible to you, all of you? So why blame Rajiv Gandhi? Or is it wrong to blame him? But let's watch a video.
आज समय कम है। मैं अंत में यही आपसे कहना चाहूंगा कि हमें इंदिरा जी का याद रखना है। हमें याद रखना है उनकी हत्या क्यों हुई। हमें याद रखना है कि कौन कौन लोग इसके पीछे हो सकते हैं। जब इंदिरा जी की हत्या हुई थी तो हमारे देश में कुछ दंगे फसाद हुए। हमें मालूम है कि भारत की जनता के दिल में कितना क्रोध आया, कितना गुस्सा आया, और कुछ दिन के लिए लोगों को लगा कि भारत हिल रहा है। लेकिन जब भी कोई बड़ा पेड़ गिरता है तो धरती थोड़ी हिलती है। लेकिन
Okay, so what was that? To all those who could not comprehend Hindi, he's saying there has been a lot of instances of riots. When a big tree falls, the earth shakes. Sitting prime minister saying that. That sentence should go down in our history books as a symbol of indifference, arrogance, shamelessness. As prime minister, he is the protector of all citizens, regardless of their religion or community. But here he is choosing to rationalize the violence. What is he saying? It's clearly implying that massacre of Sikhs, it was a natural reaction to Indira Gandhi's assassination. In a way, as a sitting prime minister, he is tacitly approving the rioters, signaling that you go on, you have all my support. And to all the BJP bhakts, do not gleam with happiness. Today, Manipur is burning. Australia, UK, US, they have issued travel advisories against visiting India. India is termed as a hard posting. for their diplomats. And why not? There are riots in UP. There is mob justice everywhere. This is what you eat, what you wear. GDP is hitting all-time low. Inflation is sky high. Look at rupee dollar conversion rate today. Foreign investors are leaving India. Foreign tourists not coming to India. And what is the leadership busy doing? Watching a movie, Sabarmati Express. That photo of India's Prime Minister, Home Minister, Health Minister should haunt people of India. That's how shameless you can become in, in how you can casually ignore Manipur, inflation, joblessness, rising digital arrest scams. All the time in the world to watch propaganda movies. Do that in your private life, making it a political statement. Rome was burning, Nehru was fiddling. Today, India is facing its own flames of division, inequality, joblessness, economic stagnation. And as citizens, we should ask ourselves who is responsible? Because if you raise aspersions on BJP, congressmen will support it. When you raise aspersions on Congress, BJPites will support it. But as citizens, what should we do? Who is responsible? Escapades of Rajiv Gandhi ji can go on and on. How Sri Lanka was handled, but I can talk about Modi ji also in that case. How Nepal is being handled, how Bangladesh was handled. Nehru ji also. First Amendment Act, 9th Schedule, Indira Gandhi. But what are we missing out? Please go back to season 1. Understand, state is individual writ large. State is nothing more than the individuals who compose it. I've told this time and again, if citizens demand riots, masjid, mandir on daily basis, leaders on top, they will ensure that you have the grandest of mosque, grandest of temples. Why? Because their survival depends on it. As citizens, we're asking for those things. Newly born babies, they were burnt alive in Jhansi. For how long did that stay the news? Stay as news. A few minutes later, you were seeing Chief Minister of that state again with a diatribe of patoge to katoge nonsense. But why is that happening? Perhaps because citizens are demanding for it. They are not asking for long-term solutions. They don't care about economy. They don't care about education. They don't care about healthcare. And leaders on top, they are very powerful because they also have the money to build narratives. They can easily distract you. Soros will come to picture. But when you request them to bring down inflation, or when you request them for better healthcare, perhaps things may change. More and more people, they should realize how they are being fooled by these useless parties. Today, the number may be less, but over time, hopefully, this may exponentially grow. People of India should understand the leader on top derive his power from you. And as citizens of this beautiful country, we should learn to think beyond these parties, beyond their narratives, beyond BJP, beyond Congress, beyond Aam Aadmi Party. And for a change, think from India's perspective. Because this country has been ruined by every succeeding government. Why? Because we're allowing them to destroy it. And the question is, what can we do as citizens? First thing is clear, we should build some rationality, thought process, ability to think in second steps. And of course, we all are doing that. But what after this? What can we do? Developing this rationality, we can't run away to foreign lands. Take it from me, it's not worth it. Rising xenophobia across the world. It is not easy to survive as a brown skin Indian, no matter wherever you go. You cannot get rid of your identity. So one thing is we have to be at the core. And one way, of course, is to be part of the IAS, IPS, IFS, army, politics. That's the core. We can be part of that core. We have the age, we have the insights, and now I think we are also developing the brain cells that we can be part of the core. Not difficult. Some of you have done this already. Of course, some of you are working with state services and other services. So good job on that. But if number one is not possible to be part of the core, you can also be part of the peripheral. That may nudge the core. We can ask tough questions. We can criticize the government. That's a good thing. That's a beautiful thing. When people of India hold the government accountable, that's a good thing. The representatives. When it takes decisions against India, question it, nudge them to course correct. And when they do good things, praise them. Perhaps that's how you can nudge them positively. So today we'll start the journey to understand something very interesting that this government did. And then we'll form views, whether it should be appreciated or not. Okay, let's watch a video and tell me your thoughts. Thoughts, anyone? India sends notice to Pakistan to review Indus Water Treaty. What is happening? What is this treaty? You all are being mute spectators today. What's happening? Sure.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, as we discussed earlier, this Indus Water Treaty is about the separation which was happened in which the eastern rivers, which are Indus, Chenab, and Jhelum, were given to the Pakistan, and the western rivers Rabi, Beas, and Satluj were held by India. So in this, India sent a notice in this video to Pakistan seeking a reassessment of the obligations, which I told you. The obligations to share that 70 to 80% of Indus River Basin to Pakistan, which is also critical to Pakistan economy, but it would be very beneficial to India also if India has a good amount of it.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What is, to all those who have no idea about it, don't worry. I think we discussed this in geography episode separately, but I'll redo this. What do you think is one resource that make nations fight or cooperate? Of course, it's water. Let's go back in time to the year 1947. Very interesting year when India was divided. Subcontinent was divided. The Indus River Basin, which had been flowing across undivided India for millennia, will now be flowing through new found and new formed countries. What is this Indus River Basin? What comes to your mind when I say this? Indus River Basin.
So, Indus River, good afternoon, sir. Indus River Basin will consider the rivers which are draining the particular area in in undivided India, considering many tributaries of Indus, Jhelum.
Okay. So Indus River Basin is one of the most historically significant river basins in the world. Why? See, 5,000 years ago, one of the world's first urban civilizations flourished here. Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, well-planned cities, advanced drainage systems, a thriving trade network. And all of that was made possible why? Indus River. Why do you think rivers were so critical for ancient civilizations? Think of any. The Egyptians, the Nile, Mesopotamia, Tigris, Euphrates, and here Indus, South Asia. But fast forward 5,000 years to 1947. India and Pakistan, they split. And now what do you think happened to the Indus River Basin? Rivers, they don't care about borders. They keep flowing. And if you think about it, Indus River Basin is not just a river system, it's a lifeline for millions. The Indus Basin in the Tibetan Plateau, it flows through China, India, and Pakistan. I know many think of Indus Water Treaty and think of India and Pakistan. Today, it's time to introduce new factor, China. Begins in Tibetan Plateau, flows through China, India, and Pakistan. Finally drains into the Arabian Sea. For centuries, Indus supported agriculture, trade, civilization. But now, India, Pakistan split up. What do you think happened to the river basin? The river did not stop flowing, but its ownership became a contentious issue. The question then became, who controls the upstream waters? What does that mean? Think. Think for 30 seconds. I said a very important line. Who controls the upstream waters? Anyone? What does that mean?
So India controls the upstream waters because if we decide to stop it somewhere downstream, gonna stop.
Okay. We're being naive and we think that India is controlling the upstream, but okay, we'll talk about it. One second. Why does geography matter? Why does geography matter?
So, as we have discussed it earlier as well, geography helps in creating empires. So, in modern times, we can say geography helps in creating states.
Okay.
States that have more resources, they are economically more powerful. And we studied, for example, earlier also the case of US. So, we can relate to that.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to controlling rivers, such a powerful tool. Whosoever controls the upstream can control the water flow downstream. No, they can decide how much water flows, when it flows, or even if it flows at all or not. If you control the source of something that others depend on, what kind of power does that give you? Think of Modi ji as upstream leader in India, and he is. What happens when he decides who should hold key positions in the government? He is essentially controlling the flow of political power in India. No one knew who is Mohan Yadav. But then Modi ji decided he should become the chief minister of Madhya Pradesh. And then he became the chief minister of Madhya Pradesh. Jai Shankar ji did not have to run for Lok Sabha elections to become a minister. And there are many who win 4 times, 3 times, 5 times Lok Sabha elections and never in their life became the minister. And he is adding the ME, such a critical portfolio. Guess what? Nominated from Rajya Sabha. Is he alone? How can we forget Nirmala ji, our finance minister? Another critical portfolio. She said that she had no money to run for elections. And guess what? Source came to the rescue. Now she is the finance minister of India. Now let me ask you a question. Who are they accountable to? They are accountable to the source of power. In that case, who is that source? People of India or Modi ji? The source of power is Prime Minister of India. If Modi ji is out of power, they will be out of power. Devendra Fadnavis ji was Deputy Chief Minister before the elections. But after elections, source decided to change the flow. What happened? Fadnavis became the Chief Minister. So Modi ji is deciding the downstream arrangement here. Modi ji in this case controls the political water flow. So if you control the source of something that others depend on, what kind of power does that give you? Ms. Chetan?
Sir, upper hand in negotiation.
Upper hand in negotiation. So we'll see. How did the negotiations take place? It gives you so much power in negotiations. Think of Indus River. Flows through China, flows through India, flows through Pakistan. Who has the most power over this river? I will say China. I know I'm going to break many hearts by saying this, but that's the truth. China has unprecedented advantage over India. Perhaps that's the reason why China was so adamant in getting control over Tibet. And we were short-sighted. Tibet, such a critical zone. Indus sustains millions. It irrigates fields, fuels industry, provides drinking water across 3 nations. The goal is to control the source. And China did that through Tibet. In 1950s, China's People's Liberation Army marched into Tibet. It was to liberate the region. But think about the strategic importance of that region. China's control over Tibet gives it unprecedented power. By controlling the source of Indus, China holds the potential to regulate water flow to India and Pakistan. Why? Because they are the downstream nations. And this control is not just theoretical. China has already demonstrated this ability, how they have been manipulating river systems in Southeast Asia. Anyone knows that story? What's happening? That is why it's very important for fifth order thinkers to hold important positions in this country. First order thinks in Hindu, Muslim, Hindu, Muslim. Second order may think beyond that. They will think for 5 years, 10 years time span. Third order may think about 20 years time span. And by controlling Tibet, China was thinking beyond. Let's look at a video.
Mekong River, source of food and water for millions, and tonight the front line in a David and Goliath confrontation with China.
When the river have problem, the people near the river have problem same.
You don't have the food because you don't have the fish.
No have everything.
In 10 years, the Mekong has changed dramatically. An estimated 40% of fish have disappeared on this stretch of river, according to the Mekong River Commission. Many say the reason is upstream. China has built 11 hydro dams, and Chinese companies are helping build more in neighbouring countries. The dams contribute to historic floods and some of the worst droughts in living memory, disrupting the centuries-old ecosystem and damaging fish stock. To find out just how badly fish stocks have been impacted, we're going to go talk to folks in this fishing village. It's almost deserted. 18 pontoons, but we see only 5 fishermen. 64-year-old Sinkam Watanam has been fishing since he was 12. How was the fishing today? None, he says. It's been like this every 2 to 3 days. John Roberts runs an elephant sanctuary by the Mekong. Small organisations like his, he says, were not consulted by Beijing.
Like someone turned off a tap. Exactly that. So the days of the long 3-month flood, which would have been part of the ecosystem for millennia, have just disappeared completely.
China says its dams do not negatively impact the lower Mekong and has agreed to share more water data, but is still accused of not giving enough warning when it opens or closes the dams. So a team in Washington, D.C. is trying to help supply information.
Okay, so what's happening there? Mekong Basin, once in a while, experiences worst droughts. In 2019, I think it had the worst drought in decades. Downstream countries accused China of holding back water in its reservoirs. Data later confirmed that China had restricted water flow, despite it being despite good rainfall in the upstream region. So what does it show? For all the future diplomats, you should understand water can be used as a geopolitical tool. And therefore, you should think beyond. Could Indus be next? Because the Indus River originates in Tibet. And Tibet, of course, you know who controls it. Both India and Pakistan, they rely heavily on the Indus for irrigation, drinking water, power generation. And if you think about it, China has already begun extensive water infra projects on rivers originating in Tibet. Zangmu Dam on the Brahmaputra is one prime example. Let me show you a video.
Mega dam near its border with India. Here is why this is important. China plans to build up to 60 gigawatts of hydropower capacity on the Yarlung-Zangbo River, better known as the Brahmaputra. The hydropower project, which would dwarf the output of the Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze River, is part of China's 14th five-year plan. Details of the project were first announced in Chinese state media. The mega dam would be constructed in Tibet on the Great Bend in the Brahmaputra, where water can drop up to 2,000 meters in the Yarlung-Zangbo Grand Canyon. The massive facility would lie near the disputed border with India. China has already built the 510-megawatt Zangmu Dam farther upstream, according to a report by Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis cited by the Times of India. 3 more dams at Dagu, Jiacha, and Jeishu are currently under construction, and 4 additional dams are planned nearby. News of the project has stoked fears in India due to its proximity to the line of actual control. The dam could threaten water security in India's northeast and be used as a tool in the border conflict between the two countries. Because it controls Tibet, which is considered the water tower of Asia, China controls the headwaters of 10 of Asia's 11 major rivers. China has not entered.
Okay. I think in the video it was mentioned that it has stoked fears in India. I don't know if people are aware of it. Giraj Singh is saying that's not the fear. Fear is something different. So the point is, with whataboutism, what's happening is both the parties have been given free ride over India. And citizens of India are just quibbling amongst themselves. %81 Hindus think that they are in danger. Muslims think that they are not even part of India. Because politicians, they thrive with divisions. So now the thing is, if China is upstream for India, so is India an upstream country for Pakistan? No. If China can build such dams and exert control over downstream nations, can India do the same with Pakistan? Or is there something that prevents us from using this strategic advantage? Thoughts? China has this advantage. India also knows this.
Sir, as we know, China and Pakistan are both allies, and Pakistan is a part of China's Belt and Road Initiative as well. So this, of course, this actually infers a point that if India starts taking such kind of hard measures in terms of controlling water resources, there might be a chance that we might face repercussions from China, because maybe like Pakistan might like connect with China regarding that, and the repercussions might be faced by India in the eastern part of the country, as well as with regards to Indus as well, because the sources of all of these rivers, be it Brahmaputra, be it Indus, everything originates from the areas controlled by China.
India could have had a lot of strategic autonomy over the rivers, at least the one flowing through its territory, but not anymore. The Chinese retaliation would differ. This is what agreements do we have? So I think let's deep dive into one of the most significant treaties in history of India and Pakistan. That's Indus Water Treaty. It's an agreement, it's a treaty. This treaty is an agreement that governs how India and Pakistan, how do they share the waters of Indus River system. How many rivers are there in the system? Which are those rivers? I told you a sequence to learn in geography episodes. GS.
So there are 6: Indus, Chenab, Jhelum. Then there is
Sequence.
I think there is Chenab first, then Jhelum. Okay, I don't remember the sequence then.
Sir, Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Bias, Satluj.
Good. After partition in 1947, these rivers became source of tension because they flow from India to Pakistan. And why would that be a problem? Because India is an upstream state. Pakistan is a downstream state. Pakistan relies on those rivers for its water. But here, in this case, India is in a way controlling the source. I'm leaving China out of the equation for now. Partition did not just divide land, it's also dividing vital resource. Pakistan was worried that India could cut off its water supply. And think about it from Pakistan's perspective, agrarian economy. And in 1960s, after years of negotiations, mediated by the World Bank, Indus Water Treaty was signed in Karachi by India's Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, Pakistan's President Ayub Khan, and one more. Who else?
So the World Bank.
Yes. WAB, I think, Elif from World Bank. But why is World Bank involved? Pakistan loves to internationalize its disputes with India. And I think it's a smart move from Pakistan's perspective to involve World Bank. Why India made this mistake? World Bank's mediation ensured that India could not dictate terms unilaterally. By involving World Bank, Pakistan successfully, in a way, made this an international thing. It's a bilateral issue. In 1960s, after years of negotiations mediated by the World Bank, India's Prime Minister Nehru signed the Indus Water Treaty with Pakistan. Many may disagree with this, but I tend to think it was a costly mistake by Nehru. I know I will get abused for this, but this is a fact. It was a costly mistake by Nehru. This treaty gave Pakistan control over 80% of waters of Indus Basin, while India retained the eastern rivers, Ravi, Bias, and Sutlej. Top three gone to Pakistan. We gave away enormous strategic leverage with this treaty. Why? What is he doing? That's why I tend to think, after a certain age, you should quit politics. Because your realism turns into idealism. And that is what was happening in 1960s. Nehruji was deeply engrossed in his vision of Panchsheel, 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, belief in mutual respect, non-aggression, peaceful coexistence. That was central to his foreign policy. Nothing wrong with that. It's good. Talk about it. But there should be some realism backing it up. And sadly, this idealism seeped into his decision making on the Indus Water Treaty. He thought India should lead by examples. India should demonstrate to the world that even hostile neighbors, they could resolve disputes peacefully. But ground realities are different, right? Indus River is a lifeline for Pakistan, also for India. And as an upper riparian state, we have this natural advantage. Use that strategic advantage. But the treaty's terms diminished this leverage. Think about this. China is smart. Is there any such treaty with China? The way Pakistan can negotiate a deal for itself, India should also be able to do something with China. Nehruji should have said, see, two neighbors could be peaceful. But in just a few years, you are giving away more land to China. China controls the upstream flow of major rivers. And those are lifeline for India. And China will not give it up, that strategic advantage, so easily. They will not sign this treaty. They will sign many MOUs, but not treaty to this effect. And China has been building dams on rivers. We saw that in the video. They are constructing mega hydropower projects. And this will alter the flow to India. And Indian diplomacy is so weak, no treaty of this kind with China. At the far end of this episode, I'll talk about what India can do and should do to resolve this going forward. Of course, some will say that China provides hydrological data on Brahmaputra River, Sutlej, so on and so forth. But that's under an MOU, a bilateral MOU that we signed. That's not a treaty. Doesn't cover long-term water sharing mechanisms. But here with Pakistan, India decided to have a treaty, Indus Water Treaty. Just think about it. How easily India gave up on its strategic advantage. We'll talk about it. How can we resolve it? That may take time. And there is a right way to go about it. But here, perhaps Nehruji wanted to establish India as a responsible global actor. And that is why there should be retirement age for being a prime minister. Your idealism is shadowing the realism. and India did not gain much. India gave control of critical rivers. And was there any quid pro quo? Anything that we got in return? India could have used this leverage to negotiate something more critical, something perhaps related to Kashmir. At that time, India was already embroiled in this Kashmir conflict. If water is so vital for Pakistan, perhaps they would have been more amenable to resolving the Kashmir issue. Their own security of a nation state is at stake. But instead of leveraging this strategic advantage, India chose to act magnanimously. So, what does it tell us about India's approach to international relations at this time? Since 1960 it was signed, right? Since then, did we resolve things? 1965 we fought a war. 71 we fought a war. 99 we fought the Kargil conflict. On daily basis, there are skirmishes in Kashmir. Attack in Uri, Pathankot, 2611. What happened to the goodwill that Nehruji wanted? And that is why there should be some realism. In fact, Pakistan used the resources from Western rivers to strengthen itself economically, agriculturally, possibly even funding its military capabilities. India could have made this treaty conditional. There are so many ways you can think about this, tying it to Pakistan's behavior. Terms could have been broad, so that interpretation scope is there. So Indus river system has 6 major rivers: Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Byas, and Sutlej. In 1960, after years of negotiation, mediated by the World Bank, Indus Water Treaty was signed. Eastern rivers, Ravi, Byas, Sutlej, were allocated for India for unrestricted use. Western rivers, Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab, they were allocated to Pakistan. India could use them for limited purposes like hydropower and irrigation, but without disturbing Pakistan's water flow. This treaty is still surviving, despite the wars that we have fought 65, 71, 99. This treaty is still surviving despite having multiple kinds of governments at the center. UPA 1, UPA 2, NDA 1, NDA 2, Modi 1, Modi 2, Modi 3. So what is happening with this treaty? Pakistan is our, we've taught about it. Under Indus Water Treaty, special body was also created. Does anyone know what is it called? This body was created to ensure compliance, resolve disputes. Does anyone know what is that body called? No one? Not a single person knows this. It's called Permanent Indus Commission. Why do you think such a body was necessary? It was set up under a treaty. It consists of two commissioners, one from Pakistan, one from India. And what is their main job? Probably to meet and discuss issues related to the rivers. They meet at least once a year, alternating between India and Pakistan. And their job is to share data about water flow, monitor projects, address disputes. Now, this treaty has a lot of criticism. Many in India, they argue that it gives Pakistan an unfair advantage by allocating 80% of Indus Basin water to them. And Pakistan sees this as a lifeline. And whenever you see India doing any projects, they will come and say that there is violation of treaty. Now, India issued a notice to Pakistan to modify the treaty. Of course, it's not that easy. But this is what the government said. India said Pakistan is refusing to cooperate in resolving disputes through the mechanisms of the treaty. For years, Pakistan has objected to India's hydropower projects on western rivers. There are two, I think, projects. One is Kishan Ganga hydroelectric project on Jhelum. Second is, I think, Ratle hydro project on Chenab. Now let's think about this. Is water becoming a geopolitical tool for India? Historically, India has refrained from using water as leverage against Pakistan. But now dynamics are changing. What's changing? What are those dynamics? Make some conjectures. Tell me your thoughts.
We need to get more realistic in terms of dealing with them.
Okay.
So the influence of China and Pakistan and that power dynamics is also influencing. Also, the string of pearls also, because we are being surrounded by the possibility of a proxy state. So even that comes into play.
Okay. One dynamic is climate change. What's happening to Himalayan glaciers? Because those are the sources of Indus River system. They are melting out there in the open. And what will that do? In the short run, short term, there will be more water. But in the long term, less water. Initially, you will see floods. Or once glaciers, when they shrink or disappear, flow will diminish. Water scarcity. And that will have huge consequences for a country like Pakistan. Pakistan depends on this Indus River for almost all its agriculture and drinking water. Pakistan is geographically not, I think, got a little unlucky in that case. It's on the downstream with India. It's on the downstream with Afghanistan also. But Afghanistan did not have Nehru. Approximately 90% of could be, you can check this number, but not that important. But approximately 90% of agriculture water in Pakistan comes from Indus. Now, if India controls the flow, as in the upstream country, what power does that give it? India could regulate the water supply to Pakistan. And up until now, India has never weaponized water. But with rising tensions, potential of water scarcity, perhaps that could change. What if India decides to no longer respect Indus Water Treaty? What can Pakistan do in such scenario? Pakistan can go to ICJ or the UN. That's a possibility. But again, that's a bilateral agreement brokered by World Bank. UN will not have jurisdiction over it. And international lawyers will prove that. So countries will have to mediate first, only then UN can entertain that. And to be honest, Pakistan has not been, realistically speaking, has not been very effective in resolving disputes under this treaty. India has continued with the projects like Kishan Ganga Dam. Pakistan has objected, but India continues with the project. Treaty allows India to build hydropower projects on western rivers within specific limits. Now, if India disregards the treaty entirely, what are Pakistan's realistic options? Anyone thinking India can never disregard the treaty? Once our prime minister retire, things can change. Some new blood come in, things can change. Think about Shimla Agreement. What was the main purpose of it? To resolve disputes bilaterally, avoid, but what is has Pakistan honored that? Pakistan always raise issues like Kashmir international forums. It was all supposed to be bilateral. Time and again, Pakistan violates it. Pakistan has repeatedly internationalized the Kashmir issue. Goes to the UN, goes to Islamic Organization for Islamic Cooperation. So India can say if Pakistan is doing this with Shimla Agreement, we can do this with Indus Water Treaty. What's wrong? So let's imagine India decides to unilaterally violate the Indus Water Treaty. What will Pakistan do? Step one, UN, ICJ. But there it will not get a quick resolution. We can manage that. We'll manage it. And as new leaders, we can ensure that management. What else can Pakistan do? They can perhaps take military action. That's possible. But then both the countries are nuclear weapon states, and here India will lose more. Pakistan, destroyed state. India is at least thriving. Let's assume we can manage deterrence here also. They may use their Nasr missile. We discussed it. And then, of course, we have the trio. But my concern is not Pakistan in this case. My concern is China. How would China react to an Indian violation of this treaty? China will, of course, basis the situation we are in, China will side with Pakistan, their allies. This will also give China the license to build more dams, divert rivers like Brahmaputra. China controls the source of Brahmaputra in Tibet. China has already built major infra projects there. If India weaponizes it, China can retaliate by cutting off controlling water flow in India's northeast. And that will have consequences for India. There could be water shortages in northeast, which is already politically sensitive. And once you have the conflict over there, economic and what not, it will not take much effort from China's end to cut that part from India forever. And of course, our leadership is busy watching movies. So, possible. And by the way, China can still do it. They don't have to wait for the violation of Indus Water Treaty. What else could happen when India violates this treaty? Because the violation of this treaty, we can destroy Pakistan. Water wars. China could perhaps frame India's actions on global stage that it's violating international norms, destabilizing region. China is also the permanent member of UNSC. China could use its influence to isolate India diplomatically. Possible. So in my mind, right now, India made a grave mistake. India lost a lot by signing this treaty. First, India lost the control. India restricted its own potential for hydropower irrigation in Jammu and Kashmir. Today, whenever India builds a dam or hydropower projects on the Western rivers, what happens? Pakistan protests, take it to international forums. Kishan Dam faced years of delays due to Pakistani objection. Even when we comply with the treaty, that is happening. See, the amount of negotiation power they have now. Despite complying with the treaty, we are seeing delays. And look at China building dams. Imagine if India had not signed this agreement in the first place. Maybe India could have established MOUs the way China is doing with us. Why have this legally binding treaty? Voluntarily, you give up power, and when you take it away, that can be concerning. Despite controlling major rivers like Brahmaputra, China does not have treaties with its downstream neighbors. China only signs non-binding agreements or MOUs. And this gives China flexibility. It can control water flows. And now these water disputes, they don't just affect India and Pakistan. Entire world is watching. If India were to back out of this treaty now, what will international community think? They may perhaps see India as unreliable, violating an agreement. In 60s, India thought promote goodwill, but now India is losing the leverage. India may lose the goodwill. It will lose goodwill, it will lose strategic depth, it will lose strategic autonomy. So what would have happened if India had not signed the treaty and simply allowed the water to flow at that time? Pakistan would have still accused India of using water as a weapon. If India back out of it now, Pakistan will see it as an act of war. No doubt about that. Today, if we back out of it, it will escalate the issue, India-Pakistan rivalry, and it will also harm India's global reputation. Now, if you are the Indian diplomats, advising the Prime Minister, what will you advise? What's the solution? What's the solution? Towards Sabarmati Express? To have some riots in UP or Bihar? make India so brainwashed that they can't think beyond caste and religion.
Maybe renegotiate the treaty as per the latest current dynamics.
Okay. I will reinterpret the treaty. What does reinterpretation mean in this context? Would involve revisiting its terms to address modern challenges, climate change, changing water needs. You will not change the rules. You will not threaten them. You need to use the language of the treaty itself to expand your rights. Treaty allows India for non-consumptive uses of western rivers. Perhaps I'll leverage that. India could accelerate hydropower projects in western rivers. That's non-consumptive. But it will give us more control over water flows. So we will respect the treaty, but we will reinterpret it. That's number one. What's number two? Because number one is also not easy. Reinterpretation will need because Pakistan will also reinterpret it then. So what do we know? What do we need to do? We have to think long term. It's possible in 20 years down the line, not today. 20 years down the line, if we play smart, we can put things in our favor. We can course correct the mistakes. But how?
Good afternoon, sir. Considering the fact that Pakistan thrives on the debts that it is taking from the international institutions such as IMF, can't India indirectly influence or try to tweak and scrutinize Pakistan in that route and change the treaties in our side?
Okay, think beyond Pakistan. China is a key player in this discussion. Now, how we deal with China, that's also critical. Can we build a scenario when China sides with India? And when could that happen? Let's say 2030 is down the line. How could that happen? America and Pakistan, they have benefited, not just America and Pakistan, America, Pakistan, Nepal, they have benefited, also adding Sri Lanka, they benefited immensely because of Indo-China rivalry. China continues to thrive and grow. But what is India getting? We're losing our neighbors anyway. Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Afghanistan. With China also, we banned TikTok. Such a aggressive stance we took. We banned the flights. Another aggressive stance we took. But then the question is, if China keeps on harassing us, what can we do? China takes our land, we ban flights. Thoughts, anyone? What if China becomes economically dependent on India in the long run? Economic interdependence is key. How can India deepen its economic ties with China? And liberals have said economic interdependence is critical. Trade is one pillar. And they should not be zero-sum game. All should benefit. Forget about Pakistan. Make China economically dependent on you. Joint projects, whatnot. I know, right now it's very hard to imagine this. But 20, 30 years down the line, things could change. After World War II, it was very hard to imagine Germany and France having open borders. Today it's there. And both are thriving. Europe is thriving. So you will have to apply functionalism, right? Number one. And of course, then you need to also fire red eyes replies, because that's not how functionalism work. That's how you destroy current relations for few viral reels. China is a realist. If from realism perspective, if China realizes India is more valuable to the Chinese versus Pakistan, perhaps they may side with India. Today we may think, Pakistan can do nothing, but if Pakistan sides with China, which it does all the time, that's how they're able to get better deal from us. Pakistan cannot dare attack us if they don't have any backing of China. Beat any war. They can't do it without Chinese backing. And for that, India needs to become an economic powerhouse. India will have to focus on itself first. Just like Singapore, how it spent some time on itself. Similarly, India should focus on itself first. Focus on the core. Plan a trip to China if possible, and you will be astonished to see how far ahead China is today versus India. So of course, interpretation is key. Focus on ourselves is key. Realizing Chinese equation is key. And also realizing short term is not the solution. We are just going ahead for, see, when Modi ji, when he sent that notice, he also knew that nothing will come out of it. But yes, it will showcase the people of India, see, this is what Modi ji can do. If he really cares about India, we will focus more on ourselves and building and forging good relations with our neighbors. And perhaps look for reinterpreting this treaty to the effect that we can start and build and complete our dam projects over there. If we can isolate Pakistan internationally, we can thrive. And that isolation will not work out if we are economically declining the way it is happening today. GDP is crumbling. The foreigners are not coming. People to people ties are not there. Public diplomacy is also critical. We have a separate arm for public diplomacy. India must present itself as a responsible stakeholder. How can India's rising economic power strengthen our position? We saw that happening without signing NPT. We signed what? Indo-US nuclear deal. Japan to whosoever, we're trading with them. We have access to nuclear technology. Why was that possible? We leveraged our economy to our advantage. Economies create empire. We can't lose track of that equation. And therefore, India should focus on its economy. But it's a sad situation that millionaires are leaving India en masse, large scale. They're leaving India. Even Andanis to even Adanis, they acquire multiple passports. You know, Adani has a Cyprus citizenship, lives in Dubai. Anyway, justifying actions of Adani. It's proven that he's, instead of inquiring, that he is paying bribe to Indian officials, with justifying his actions. So what? India should create ecosystem, ease of doing business in reality, ease that process. We're killing MSMEs, useless taxes. Countries abroad, they're attracting investments via reducing taxes. Georgia has 1% tax. Dubai, no tax. Singapore, minimal tax. I don't think they have capital gains tax in Singapore. That's why investors are moving there. But here, every transaction, everything tax. India should become indispensable for global trade. India already has such a strategic location. You saw that, right, yesterday? But sadly, the leadership is concerned about different things. And it's not just about this leadership. Meet any. They're concerned more about riots or movies. And the reason is simple, because people of India want that. Slowly and steadily, if people of India ask for better things, things will change. State is individual writ large. That's the fact. Individuals here, insecure, bunch of brainwashed junkies. So please note down a question. Despite the differences between India and Pakistan on various issues, Indus Water Treaty stood the test of times. In the light of this statement, discuss the recent developments over the issue. Despite the differences between India and Pakistan on various issues, Indus Water Treaty has stood the test of times. In the light of this statement, discuss the recent developments over the issue. 20 marks to 50 words. You know the base, apply the framework, and give me a good quality answer. And read the question again. What am I asking? I'm purposefully trying to confuse you with this question. I told you one thing.